What's good, party people? On today's episode, we're going to talk about the relationship between you and your significant other and your other significant other. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to another awesome episode of the Joker the King podcast. Today, what we're going to do is talk about this financial love triangle. You heard me right. Financial love triangle. Um, Let me clarify. When two people enter into a long term committed relationship, they are sharing more than their time and their bodies and their thoughts with each other. They are also sharing their finances. It's a financial love triangle. You, your significant other, and money, which is your other significant other. Once a couple decides to spend their lives together in marriage, for example, not only do they share their money, but they also share their debts. And all of this money sharing and debt sharing can and often does lead to some conflicts. Now, there is a misconception out there that money is the number one cause for relationship problems or divorce. Over the past several years, research has shown that's not true. Money issues do not even make up the top five reasons for divorce. In fact, the top five reasons for divorce are lack of compatibility or commitment, too much arguing, communication problems, cheating and infidelity, and marrying too young. In fact, there are two studies out there that show money as a leading cause of stress in divorce and relationships, but those two studies were actually conducted by banks, Citibank and SunTrust Bank. So I don't have a lot of faith in those studies funded by the bank. I'm looking at these researchers who say money is not the leading cause of divorce. So what is money in terms of that relationship? Money is like a flashlight. It shines a light and exposes the nature of people. It exposes the nature of a relationship. Couples don't actually separate because of money issues. They separate because of the issues that money shines a bright light upon, like no communication or secrecy or incompatible habits. So if couples don't break up over money, then where does this whole money misconception come from? The answer is most couples argue about money, but they don't break up over money. There's a difference. The money issues in a relationship that they argue about stem from one or more of these five topics. Number one, there's conflicts about who controls the money. Number two, there's secret spending and sometimes secret saving of money. Number three, there's arguments about not having enough money and who's most responsible or at fault. Number four, there's issues about a person's self worth being tied up with one's net worth. Number five, lack of communication about plans on how to climb out of debt. Those are the five primary arguments about money in a relationship. And sometimes those lack of communication skills or the cheating or the secrecy are the things that come out of that money flashlight. Now, almost all money conflicts for a couple really stem from two root causes: poor communication about money and unresolved personal issues around money. So let's look at that first one. Um, Poor communication about money. What do you do when you suddenly realize that the way that you treat money is different than how your partner treats money? For most couples, this is where a lot of fighting begins, right? For example, let's suppose that you are a saver and your wife is a spender, right? If she spends too much money on unnecessary items, you really cannot blame her for the spending habits that she had before she met you, right? If you were now to approach her with anger or condescension about the way she's spending her money, how likely is it that she's going to see your perspective? How likely is it that she's going to change her behavior just because you said so? You're only going to appear angry and controlling over habits that she had before she met you. Now, if she's spending way too much of your money, it's still not a good idea to approach with anger and condescension, because if you think there's a problem and you want things to change, it is your responsibility to communicate effectively what you feel needs to happen. It's a communication issue. The idea is you, as the person who has the problem or sees the problem first, you have responsibility of communicating those boundaries. You cannot always wait for the other person to start the conversation. You have 100% responsibility as the sender in this communication to talk to that person as the receiver and make your voice heard clearly. Then the ball is in that other person's court about what to do with this situation. Number two issue, the root cause issue, unresolved personal money issues. I'm not usually a fan of dichotomous thinking, but when it comes to money, we really do fall into two predominantly broad categories. We are either spenders or savers. And people who are spenders tend to carry more debt. They tend to be more of a consumer instead of a producer. They tend to be poor long term planners. When it comes to savers, people who are savers tend to carry more financial anxiety. They tend to be less generous. They tend to come from families who provide strong positive financial messages and strong negative financial messages. And the key point here is to understand that we all carry our unresolved baggage, especially with money, into our relationships. These issues manifest themselves in some very odd ways. And when it comes to money, the perfect ideal scenario is to know exactly what your financial beliefs and values are before entering into a long term relationship. What are your money values? What are your money beliefs? What are your money habits? Are you more of a saver or a spender? Do you believe in paying yourself first or paying the bills first? Do you view money as easy to make or difficult to make? What types of messages did you receive about money from your family during childhood? What financial lessons have you learned along the way? All of these types of things need to be clear in you before you can start having conversations with someone else. And actually, the largest money problem in a relationship is not the lack of money. The largest money problem in relationships is about people's hidden beliefs about money that are suddenly dragged out into the open by your partner's behaviors. Unresolved money issues are like unresolved issues about sex or religion or family or gender roles or parenting or everything else that you unknowingly bring into relationships. Okay. By the way, one last thing. You need to have a conversation with your partner about money. Now, if you have any anxiety about having this conversation, you're not ready to share money with this person. It's just like conversations about sex. If you're not mature enough to have a conversation about sex, then you're not mature enough to have sex. Likewise, if you're not mature enough to have an adult conversation about money, you may not be ready and mature enough to share money with your partner. Now, every single podcast episode, I give you a mission for the week. And so here is your mission. Your mission for this week, if you are in a relationship, your mission for this week is to sit down with your partner and have a conversation about money. And I'm going to give you some questions to ask your partner. Now, if you are not in a relationship, your mission this week is to sit down with yourself and answer these questions. Okay? Either way, some questions are about to get answered. So here are the things that I want you to ask. Do you see yourself more as a saver or a spender? Question for you and question for your partner. Number two, what are some of your best habits when it comes to money? Number three, what are some of your worst habits when it comes to money? Number four, how did your parents handle money? What habits did they have? Number five, how do you feel about men making more money than women in relationships? How do you feel about women making more money than men in relationships? Number six, what are your thoughts on joint banking accounts? Should husbands and wives maintain their own personal accounts that are separate from a joint account? Should they not have their own individual account and just have one big pot? What do you think? Number seven, do you believe in abundance or scarcity? And this is a big topic. It affects your mindset and your thinking about income. Number eight, what should get paid first each month? Your future self, your current self, your debts, or your bills? Woo! You might have to rewind this video and hear that question again. Number nine, who do you think should manage the money, you or your partner, and why? Number 10, how much money do you make? Where does that money come from? Ooh. Number 11, how much debt do you have? And where does your debt come from? And number 12, this is a big one. How do you create and manage budgets? That's a big one because I'm starting to realize that people have a different definition of the word budget. Some people think of a budget as an itemized summary of the income and expenses each month. Other people define a budget as a spending plan. These are very two opposite mindsets, and they have subtle differences that can affect your partnership and your relationship when it comes to money. My advice to you this week is answer these questions alone for yourself and then answer them with your partner and talk with your partner. Instead of talking to your partner, talk with your partner. It's your partner. You're a team. The purpose of this conversation is understanding, not controlling, not about arguing or convincing the other person to believe what you believe. It's about understanding where you all are coming from. I hope that makes sense. What I want you to do is I want you to try that mission. Also, if you want to contact me, please feel free and contact me. You can subscribe, follow this podcast, or you can go to jokertheking.com and just contact me and say hi. If you have an idea for a future episode, or even if you have an idea about this one that you just listened to, contact me, reach out. I will talk with you all later. Be good to yourself. Take care of yourself. And while you're at it, take care of someone else. Peace.